All right, welcome everyone to the EV shopping guide. I have with me today a great friend and incredible activist, Alexandra Paul. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thanks for having me, Zan.
And I'm going to give her an introduction. Alexandra has appeared in, as many know, 100 feature films and television programs, usually as the first or second female lead. She's internationally recognized for her 5-year starring role as Lieutenant Stephanie Holden in the original TV series Baywatch. And she recently launched a wellness coaching business. And on the activism front, Alexandra, if you have an hour, I could go on, but was honored by the ACLU of Southern California as their 2005 Activist of the Year for her long history of fighting for the environment, voting rights, and peace issues. In '97, the United Nations commended Alexandra for her work on human overpopulation. In '99, she won the International Green Cross Award. She walked across America for over 5 weeks, I didn't know this, on the Great Peace March for Global Nuclear Disarmament, and has been arrested over a dozen times for protesting at the Nevada nuclear test site. She was also arrested during a peaceful 1990 sit-in for AIDS patients to access fast-tracked pharmaceutical drugs, and as probably many know here, arrested for protecting electric cars from being crushed, namely a whole bunch of EV1s. Alexandra has also been arrested 5 times for peacefully protesting animal exploitation. She's been involved in open rescues of other farm animals with the nonprofit Direct Action Everywhere. And she's been driving electric cars since 1990. So that's 32 years now, Alexandra.
And happy, quiet, gas-free years.
Right. And as I told you a minute ago, I had a few questions lined up, but I think we're rounding out the second or third week of the invasion of Ukraine, and that is just on all of our minds. So I really just wanted to let you talk about why you started driving electric and why we all need to do that now.
Oh, I started driving electric because in 1989, the Exxon Valdez, which was an oil tanker, crashed and spilled a lot of oil in pristine Alaskan waters. And at first I was like, oh, we should all boycott Exxon. And then I looked at my car, which was a GMC Jimmy, which was a big car back then. Now it'd be a small, tiny SUV. But and I realized that I was part of the problem and that I needed to stop just getting on my soapbox and actually doing something. And so I got my first electric car in 1990. It was a car that was an old Datsun, and it had been somebody had put batteries in it in their garage, and it went 25 miles per charge, and I had to plug it into the wall socket and I had to change the battery water every week. Or I refill it because it would disappear.
What was it, a lead acid battery back then?
Yes.
Yeah.
My first 2 electric cars were lead acid batteries, and then my third one was the EV1.
Oh, I'm seeing the picture of you and Chelsea because you were one of her first deliveries, right?
Yes, I was so lucky. I was so excited because it just happened to be that I chose a green car. So it was car number 37 off the line, and it was the first one leased to the public. So cool.
And what was the mileage on that?
It got, oh gosh, how much did it get in the beginning? I don't remember, but I remember that when they put in, eventually got over 100.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it wasn't. The first incarnation was not 100, maybe it was 80, which seemed like forever for me since I'd been driving cars that got 25 or 35.
Right. But they were your sole cars, right? You managed just driving those converted Datsun, etc., right?
No, I had a gas car.
Okay.
No, when I got the EV1, that's when I got rid of my gas car. But in all honesty, I also lived with my boyfriend at the time who had a car. So we had a second car, it was gas. Now we have, and for maybe a decade, we've just had electric cars.
Right. But you and your husband.
Yes.
Right. And so after the EV1, what came next?
The RAV4, which I loved so much, the RAV4 EV, We had that car for 13 years. My husband got a Chevy Spark. Then I drove the Volt because I was a spokesperson for the Chevy Volt, which was a plug-in hybrid. I had 2 incarnations of those, and now I have a Bolt with a B.
Right.
Yes, which gets 230 miles per charge. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you're in the lap of luxury, right?
Oh, totally, totally.
Yeah. And you know what? Since I have you here, let's talk about that afternoon when you were arrested. It was the Burbank training facility for General Motors. And what happened? Why were you arrested?
Wow, I think, and by the way, I think that was in March, which is right around now. So that's you and Paul and lots of other EV enthusiasts were at the Burbank facility because that's where they were storing the last of the EVs, and they were taking them to be crushed. And we discovered that. We didn't know exactly when these cars were going to be taken out of this facility to be crushed, but we knew there was a crushing facility and they were on their way there. And so we had what ended up being a month-long, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week vigil there to make sure that those vehicles didn't get snuck out of the lot. And the day I was arrested was actually the morning that I was actually also on watch. And it was, so all of a sudden we see the transport trucks come in and the call went out for everybody, and dozens of people came to the site to protest as the transport truck was loaded with EV1s and then tried to leave the facility, but couldn't because my RAV4 was blocking it. And myself and another amazing activist and EV driver, Colette Devine, sat in that RAV4. That RAV4 was protecting its brethren.
It was parked right at the entrance to the parking lot where the EV1s were stored, and you would not move it.
Wouldn't move it, and had a lot of support from you and others to not move it. And the police were called, and we were arrested after a 2-hour standoff.
Yeah, they forced you out of the car, right? You were there inside with the windows rolled up and everything, right?
They didn't force us out of the car. They said, unless you come out now, we're going to smash the window. Wow. And so being someone who believes in peaceful civil disobedience, I didn't feel like they needed to smash the window to get to me, that I would happily be arrested for the EV1s.
And what happened? Did you spend any nights in jail, or what happened from there?
Actually, Colette and I spent about 5 hours together in a cell, which was super fun. So not at all. And then we did have to go before a judge, and we were each sentenced to 100 hours of community service. But here's something funny and so LA, is that I'm an actress, as you said in your intro, and the judge that I went before, he'd acted with me in a movie. He played a judge. And so he said to the prosecutor, I just want to say that I have met this woman before, because I was actually in the scene, and he was the brother of the director. And since he was a judge, the director just said, hey, bro, come be the judge in this scene. And but I promise you I won't be biased. So the prosecutor, I guess, had to say, okay. And so the judge gave us 100 hours, and I was allowed to do volunteer work for electric cars, which I did. And I also went and registered voters and went to Katrina to help animals. So that's how I did, which I would have done all that anyway, but I just got to, knock it off for my my service.
Right. I can't believe I've never even asked you what happened after that fateful scene that is one of my favorites, of course, from it's in Who Killed the Electric Car, if anyone has not seen that. So, well, that's wonderful and very uplifting and funny to reminisce. But as I said, it's 2 or 3 weeks into the Ukraine crisis, and tell us why, in your heart, you drive electric.
Well, I chose electric because of environmental issues, but there are also some very, very important national security issues, which our friend Paul Scott, your ex-husband and our friend, has really taught me, is that driving electric means that you don't have to depend on other nations who might be run by despots for your energy, because we can power our cars from our own rooftop solar. And so that gives true energy independence and true independence from wars over oil resources. And especially now with us deciding how we're going to punish Russia for the invasion of Ukraine, being really dependent on gasoline gives us just not as much of an upper hand. It will be interesting to see how long Americans will be able to sustain the pain of having to pay more at the pump for the good of the Ukrainians and the world, actually. But, you know, and people like you and I who drive electric, we don't even have to deal with that dilemma.
Yeah. I hesitate to say this, but I mean, it's actually been a good thing for electric vehicles in my mind. There's no good thing about people dying anywhere, but there is sometimes an upside, and I just think, but I'm worried that we're going to miss the opportunity one more time, because we've been at $5 per gallon gas before, and it's always how fast can we get back to normal, and we can't have normal again. And you know, I was doing a little research. 30 countries during COP, the UN climate summit that just happened, 30 countries pledged to end gas cars by 2040, which isn't close enough, but we're in the middle of a transition to electric vehicles. And I just hope that this pain and death and suffering can bring us closer to doing something really different this time.
I agree. I think crises often move us to change, because the status quo is often so comfortable that we need to be kind of kicked to make changes. And so this war that Russia started in Ukraine will, I think, give us a kick. It might not get us over the goalpost, but slowly, with more and more kicks, like the gas prices in 2005, was that 2005 when they went up so abruptly?
Or eight.
Or eight. Yeah. I didn't know because I was driving an electric car. But those really helped push electric cars more into the mainstream.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so for the person who's never driven electric, how do they go about it? Even in this market with all their supply chain issues and stuff, what would you suggest to start looking into driving, owning, or leasing an electric car?
First thing is that people who actually have an electric car have less range anxiety than people who've never driven a car. So as you learn that how little you actually drive, and how you can charge at home often or at public charging stations, you'll realize that an electric car is a great alternative to the gas car you've been driving. The most important things to look at is your own driving. And I think Americans overestimate how much they need to drive. Now, I personally go see my mom in Oregon about 4 times a year, and I just rent a car. It's cheaper in the long run for me to do that instead of having a car for the 4 times I'm going to drive. People, Zan, I'm sure people told you this. We live in LA. People would always come up to me when they saw my electric car and go, well, what if you want to go to Vegas? And I'm thinking, how often do you go to Vegas? And if you do, should we have a discussion about that? Yeah, you just rent a car if you want to go to Vegas. It's so easy. But that's important. Some people do drive a lot. And so that, you know, if you drive over 200 miles a day now, you might not want to drive an electric car. You also might not want the job you currently have if you're driving 200 miles a day, unless you're a truck driver. But so that's in a consideration. That will help you decide what car. Then the second thing is to see where you're going to charge. I think that's the biggest impediment, more than range, because cars now will go up to over 300 miles per charge, is where you're going to charge. And if you rent an apartment, it does get tough. And we need to have more laws that mandate that there be an easy way to get a charger into even a rented space. So, and of course, public charging will improve. But those are 2 big considerations.
That's great. And I'm going to put in a plug for Plug in America or the Electric Vehicle Association, but particularly Plug in America is always on top of new laws and legislation So if listeners are not members, they can certainly do that, and so that we can all participate in that way to get more chargers in the ground. And I'll just, before I ask you, follow up with what you're doing now professionally. There's sort of this debate within the environmental world of policy is really the only answer, and that individual actions don't matter. You drive an electric car, you stated, because you believe in walking the walk, I guess you would say, that individual actions do matter. So could you talk about that a little bit? Is policy the only answer?
Policy is a huge answer. It's a very, very important. It helps the individual make the decision. But I believe that the individual action is crucial. And maybe I have a self-inflated view of my importance, but all of our importances individually, but I really, really believe that each of us act as role models, and sort of like when we make a change, other people see it and they make a change. And it's like that shampoo commercial when you tell two friends and okay, I'm showing my age, right, Zan? But anyway. So yes, I do believe in individual action. And I also believe that I want to be able to wake up every day and know that I did the right thing. And so that is also a huge impetus for me, to the power of one.
Yeah. Awesome. And finishing up, I do have, a girl crush on you for your professional career. And for anyone who doesn't know, Alexandra was in the original Baywatch. Babe, I always describe you as the intelligent one. Not that you weren't gorgeous, but am I getting that wrong? But weren't you sort of known as the more intelligent? Not that they weren't all intelligent. I'm really putting my...
No, everyone says that, and it might be because my position was the lieutenant, so I was the highest ranking alongside David Hasselhoff of all the lifeguards. But also, it was because I had brown hair and small breasts. Let's face it, that's the truth. All my other castmates were just as smart as I. It's just that I got all the kudos for that, because all you have to do is dye your hair and be genetically born looking like an athlete, and people think you're smarter, I guess.
And so what have you been doing lately on the acting front?
I have 2 movies coming out, actually. One called Tethered, which is coming out later in March, and it's a horror film. And then a movie called Baby Steps, which should come out later this year, which is an independent film where I play like a crazy mother and mother-in-law, just like bugging my kids to have kids, believe it or not. Yeah, and I also have a podcast called Switch for Good, switch the digit 4 good, which advocates for a plant-based lifestyle.
Right. And your coaching, wellness coaching business, right?
I am also a health coach. You can go to alexandracoaching.com, and I give free 20-minute consults to see if health coaching is right for you, but I help people change their lives through small steps of incrementally healthier habits.
Sounds awesome. So great to talk to you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Zan, for having me on. It was great to see you and to reminisce.
Same here. Bye.
Bye.